Hi everyone. So, in honor of International Women's Day, BabyChakra and Girl Tribe presents this webinar. It's workplace bias. See it, name it, and stop it. I'm Shweta Tanwar Mukherjee, a marketing professional with over 15 years of experience in the corporate world. And currently, I'm working as a digital creator, photographer at White Cameras. Also, I've been associated with BabyChakra as an advisory board member. And I welcome all the panelists, esteemed speakers, and the audience out there. We have with us Amrita. Hi, Amrita. Amrita Tong, and Amrita is a partner at LNN Partners and a former judge. She's also a mom star and an Insider Club member. Welcome, Amrita, for the webinar.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Amrita, tell us about your experience, being an Insider Club member. How's it? And what do you think about today's topic?
Today's topic is something that is extremely close to my heart because, workplace bias or bias in general is something all of us have experienced, irrespective of gender. So I know we don't have a lot of men who've joined us here, but yes, apart from Karthik, that's why I mentioned, because that was one of your observations. So the topic is definitely close to my heart. I want to have this conversation because this is something that needs to be discussed, because the unconscious bias that's prevalent, you can only address it if you know that it exists. And that's why this discussion is very important, be it terms of any gender bias or bias when it comes to discrimination, when it comes to mental health issues, which are definitely extremely important in today's time, especially considering the fact that we've all been mostly in isolation for the last 2 years and are just now sort of getting back to the normalcy that we were accustomed to. Coming to your question regarding the Insiders Club, I think BabyChakra is a brand that I trust, mostly because of this concept of there being an insider club where the mothers are so intricately involved on every part of any product that comes out, be it marketing, be it development of the product, be it testing the product. And we've been using it for our kids, we've been using it for ourselves also at times, and the inputs are so well received that when the final product comes out, there is no question or doubt about using it for yourself, your family, or speaking to others about it, recommending it. I think the trust factor is really high, and that's because of the fact that there's something like an insiders club. So it's great to be a part of it.
Rightly said. I mean, when there's a product or there's a community, which all of us put together our thoughts into it, I think it just comes out something which we really wanted to see for our kids, Absolutely right. Rightly said. And welcome again, Amrita. So now I welcome our second guest, Karthik Rao. Karthik is Chief People Officer at Good Glam Group. I think everyone knows about it with so much happening around this group. And I think you guys are just taking over the social media. And I think, is there anything left, Karthik, which you guys are not taking over?
Yeah, there are a few. You'll hear about.
There are still few in the pipelines, I guess. Yeah. So tell us please share your thoughts on today's webinar, Karthik.
One, I think so from two perspectives, I felt this was important. One was, as Amrita rightly said, I think it's still a topic which needs a lot of discussion. Although I feel pandemic was a great global equalizer. Right, it kind of made a lot of men realize, a lot of things which they almost assumed for granted. Right, suddenly they realized how difficult it is, right, to manage home and work, and there was a very big renewed respect for how we imagine, right, including myself, right. How much more I understood my wife's perspective was deeply enriching, right? I think so. It's a topic which really kind of took fore, but is it where it needs to be? I don't think so. Very recently I was talking to a CEO. He spoke about hygiene or women hygiene issues at workplace, which is such a not spoken about subject. And he said the bias is so subtle. So I asked him, is this as big a issue in my ignorance? And he said yes, because most companies have admin managers as men. Now they don't even know the problem that exists in a women's washroom. It's that subtle that most companies don't even have an admin manager as women and man. Is how biased even today in 2022 we are. So I think it's such a great platform. Naya, I think, has been one of the biggest voices to talk about this, and the whole BabyChakra team and all of you, I think. So super happy to be a part of it. And I work in a company where our brand's business CEO is a woman. Out of the 3 founders of Good Glam Group, 2 are women. So it's a place where women have already broken a lot of bias. So I think, I've seen it very close quarters on how amazing it can be for you as a group and as a company.
That's very insightful, of you talking about the one simple aspect of women hygiene at corporates. And I absolutely get it. I mean, I remember we have like, admin managers, all the regions, and they were guys. Yeah. And I mean, we couldn't go, very outspokenly and talk about it. Rightly said. Thank you, Karthik, and looking forward to have a good conversation with you. So now we have Natasha Biswas. Super thrilled to have you, Natasha. Natasha is India's first transgender to win a beauty pageant and has represented India at many international levels. She is a model, influencer, and a TEDx speaker. So welcome, Natasha. Would love to know your thoughts on this topic today.
Thank you for having me over, and thank you for the beautiful words that you have used just now for me. So, and thank you to my panelists as well. I think I'm so glad to be a part of this morning because, first of all, I'm very, convinced that this is happening, years of struggling. So, when we come to a place where we talk about biasness, I think I have lived a path and a journey where biasness was not done justice to me. So, if I go back in time from, say, about 5 to 10 years when I started my transition, things were much more different. Things were not as easy how it is today. So, raising a voice from then to now. When I talk about workplace, with my instances itself, I will be one of those voices which I raise to tell people that how much I had struggled to be here where I am today. I remember when I came from Calcutta to New Delhi with my first train in Rajdhani. So, I had to survive. It's like survival of the fittest. It's like the militaries when they train and they left in certain situations in the jungle with a knife and, you have to survive. I was in the same state. So joining an e-commerce website, trying to survive with the money I had and gaining a position to fund my transition was not easy. When it comes to biasness at work, I have seen where, yes, there is silent discriminations, and that really hurts you because, when every morning, when you wake up in the morning at 11 or 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, you go to your workplace and you're going with a good mind, with a good heart to meet your fellow workers because you want a productive day, and you see that this out of 10, 5 would not talk to you or discriminate you or have that vision of not being friendly with you. So I think that breaks your heart, that breaks the spirit of trying to do something better. So I think this has always been constant in my life. And, we are at an age in 2022, as we have all mentioned, that the pandemic has played a very important role in changing our lives. Honestly speaking, going back in time in 2019 and 2022, how we make a pancake go upside down, our lives have gone upside down because we are living in different life. We are, trying to come accustomed with the millennial people and what we are going through right now, and we're trying to be a better person. So I think the pandemic is playing a very important role, and we as one species, we are addressing this issue so that tomorrow we can coexist. To my belief, if we cannot coexist with one another, I think it's going to be very tough for us to go on with the civilization in terms of work. And if we do not work properly, we are not together as a civilization. And if we're not together as a civilization, we do not say hi to the others when we see from above.
Uh, I mean, I am actually at the loss of words, Natasha, and I can absolutely feel, that kind of pain and, things. And we will be talking a lot about these kind of an exclusive or probably, not giving that kind of an exclusive attitude in terms of the corporates. So Karthik, redirecting or just, coming up, I have like lots of questions which I have framed and because I myself has, been into this kind of a space. So, Karthik, my question is to you. How do corporates ensure that they address workplace bias in a very efficient manner?
Yeah. So I think it's at three levels, right? Any change that has to happen at three levels. One is at people level. Second is at a process level. Third is at a system level, which is a far more deeper, long, transformational change, right? I think most corporates have reached more to a people and process level and not at a systems level, right? Eventually, see, companies' culture is nothing but a reflection of country's culture, right? We are all Indians, right? We are eventually coming from very similar backgrounds. So we are all, unfortunately, fortunately, being so biased starting from home. And this bias is not just gender bias, by the way, right? Indian society में intercaste marriage is a taboo. You're told कि यार कोई भी आपसे differential है ना वो अंदर नहीं आना चाहिए. So bias kicks in from that moment of who you can marry. Imagine the impact it will have on who you want to work with, right? It's a natural extension. As a 5-year-old kid, you're told, don't go out. It's raining. Wait for the weather to be perfect. You're teaching a child that wait for things to be perfect to do anything. Its weather is just a metaphor, right? So I think my 3-year-old niece, she falls on the ground. My sister-in-law would hit the ground and say, "Gira diya mere bachche ko." The 3-year-old child is getting conditioned. She was right, floor was wrong. Right? So many biases get kicked in. So I think companies have now reached a stage of awareness. And hence what we try and do is talk a lot more, which changes at a people level and to some process level, which is like having policies which are, gender friendly, right? Can we have, and that's why I said pandemic was a great equalizer, right? Giving women option to work from home, understanding how difficult it is to balance, home and, So for example, one of the things we have done and we have been kind of constantly talking is pay grade is something that one of our panelists spoke about. I think one thing we have kind of ensured is there is no difference in pay. And as HR, what we are ensuring is the heft is on talent than gender. Right. The second is, honestly, this is my third startup. I've worked in 7-8 companies, and my first company was Benetton, which is very women heavy. I have not come across a woman who has ever had any differences in the amount of effort she puts. I have grown up in companies where women were leaders, right, including my home. So I think a lot of companies are now, as I said, at a people level, which means, are you hiring the right people? Because they become a big filter. And one of the things that we are doing is hiring through committee. Now, I as an individual might have a bias, but the moment I put 4 or 5 people on committee, I have an option of reducing that individual's bias on kia. Women, Zomato launched something called a period leave. They got such a severe backlash, which was launched with such a good intent, got a severe backlash ki now people may not even hire women thinking ki yaar 12 leave extra dena padega. You know what I mean? And that's the system level change I'm talking about, which we are still yet to achieve. But at a policy level, Good Glam, for example, always had an option and will continue forever an option of working from home, whether pandemic or not pandemic, right? Having a lot of women founder helps, gives a lot of balance and voice on the table on every time we are launching a new initiative. So I think those are some of the things which are happening. But can I say, is it at a very evolved level? I don't think so, because most companies don't even know they have a bias. So right now, it's an ignorance stage.
Yeah, and I think you rightly said about that unconscious bias, and we will be coming to that. And the irony is, I mean, I can completely relate to it because I was working in an organization where our TG and everything was expecting moms, and I have to quit my job because I was expecting, because I couldn't travel 20 days a month. I was handling a team of 25, so my efficiency was judged on the fact that okay, now she's expecting, and her priorities will change. So I think that bias is somewhere there, which somehow it is so conditioned in our way. So you rightly said, Karthik. So Amrita, I am just heading towards you now, and my question is, does workplace bias keep the women out of the workforce?
I wouldn't say it's the workplace bias, but definitely circumstances that differ from person to person that may keep somebody out from the workforce. Like Karthik mentioned, work from home definitely was a boon during the pandemic, but for women, it's been quite tough, even during the pandemic, because when you're in office, you're focusing on work, right? You have your family at the back of your mind, but when you're at work, you're focusing on work. When you're at home with a child, with your family, there is an expectation in the Indian household that, theek hai, if the mother is at home, if anything happens, beta, ek baar dekh lo isko. That will always be there, even though you may be on a call, you may be on a meeting. So that is something that people have struggled with. That is something that I have struggled with. And if I'm not doing that, if I ignore it, if my family thinks, chalo, let her work, let's not do that, I will still feel the guilt. My child is crying in the other room and I'm sitting here on a meeting. So in that way, the work from home thing during the pandemic may not have been a boon 100%, but yes, it definitely helped to, the fact that you had a job was again a big thing during the pandemic. See, I joined the judiciary in 2013, and I was there for about 5 years. I decided to start a family. So for certain personal reasons, I resigned from the judiciary. When I was pregnant with my daughter, I decided to get back into the workforce. But the first thing that, as soon as I said that I am expecting, because I think full disclosure is important when you're going for an interview, I told them that, I'll be having a kid in about the next 6-7 months. So now that was most of the organizations where I applied, that was something that they were not happy with. But to be fair, if I had been associated with them for a long time, had they known my work ethic, they would have still wanted to take a chance and would be comfortable. We'll work around it and everything. But if you're looking at joining something new, that is something that will definitely be a factor. Somebody who is as qualified as me would definitely be chosen over me, who would, out joining after 6 months would go on leave, even for about 4 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever. So yes, for about 2 years, I'm giving my personal example. When I had my daughter, I went back to practicing independently, but I did not join an organization because my daughter was my priority then. Fortunately, 2 years into motherhood, I decided to apply to the place I'm working with right now. And there again, when I went for my interview, the first thing in my mind was, as soon as I tell them I have a daughter, they're not going to be too happy about it. But then again, this was my bias that I had in my mind because of what I had seen through the 2 years. And also, when you talk about it, you read about it, you watch it in movies as well, ki haan, bias hai. So all of this is conditioning my mind ki acha main ye jaake bolungi, so this is how it's going to be perceived. That was my fault. That is my bias in my mind that is hampering me or stopping me from doing something which may really actually worked out for the best. It was a pleasant surprise when I went for my interview, met with the senior partner, who was a person who chosen to not get married, who didn't have kids. So again, I thought this person is going to be, very, very stern and very particular about stuff, and he's going to be a workaholic. He's not going to understand what I'm going through. But I was pleasantly surprised because the fact that he started talking to me about everything that goes on in my family, my work, everything, the fact that he had that conversation with me made me understand that this is a bias that I have in my mind that somebody else may not have. So it's very important to have a conversation. It is extremely important to have that conversation with your supervisor or anybody that you consider as a mentor at work. Because if you're not going to make your you're not going to meet expectations if you're not going to have that conversation. So that is something that's really helped. I feel it's extremely important to develop self-awareness. It's important to speak out. It's important to have strong women mentors in an organization, just like Karthik mentioned. It's extremely important because if you have all of these things, that conversation will happen. The unconscious bias that's there will not be there anymore. And that will definitely keep more people in the workforce. And the bias comes from generalizing people. If you have a conversation, everybody has different issues in life. You can't generalize कि अच्छा ये woman है, married है, इसका बच्चे का problem है, इसको काम नहीं देता. That shouldn't happen. Somebody who needs support will tell you that they need support, and then you sort of work around it to help them develop in the career. But there may be somebody who's very comfortable handling work-life balance who may not need those concessions, so to say. And you can't really stop giving them those sort of high pressure work assignments or something, just thinking that this is a woman and she has a child, she has a family. Or be it a man also, he's just gotten married, let's not get him something that will drive him out of the city. So I think it's really important to have these conversations. No generalizations. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think a very good point here that, conversations, and we need to talk and put across our thoughts. And, the more we talk about this, I think we will also get to know the different perspectives. And pandemic, as you said, obviously there were a lot of role reversals happening, like your husband gets to know about what the wife goes through and what's like the day, So rightly said. So Natasha, now I would like to ask you a very important question here. I think all these organizations do talk a lot about diversity in the workplace. So do you think that creating a trans inclusive workspace is still a challenge in a country like ours, and, probably the culture and the backgrounds we come from?
Well, you know what? To my belief, it is like, why will this question arising in today, this morning? This thing that comes first in my mind. Why will I say this is because I think human rights is as basic for every one of us. If I was born and endowed with the rights to live and have the freedom of expression and have the freedom of working with everyone. I have always been saying that, 5 fingers are not same. So 5 people will be different. So there can be one spectrum of strengths women, one can be of short women, one can be of beautiful women, one, like 5 fingers are not same. So having this question right now itself, makes me feel that my existence is still under question. I am not yet at a position where I walk into a certain company and say, hey, I'm qualified for this. Can I just work here? Literally like that. So over here, I would say that yes, when it comes to India, when I started transitioning back in 2014, 13, things were much harder, things were much more tougher, like me going to my workplace was a big question mark at that point of time. Because, I had gone through, and I think every transgendered women will go through that factor where a certain point you tend to look like a man and a woman during a transition phase when your doctors are medicating you. So, those are the days that I've seen. But today, I'm happy that, yes, I would say that India is growing up in terms of trans inclusivity, because I think it's amazing to have this because, as I said, coexistence is so important. If you're not able to coexist, if you're not able to stand for each other right at this point of time, I think it's going to be very hard for us to work as one civilization with the current affairs that we have around the world, with the wars and everything. So I think we all have to be there for each other and stand for each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of it, because every organization, when they talk about we are we have the diversity in the workforce, but eventually the underlying aspect of it, or your experience, like you said, is still the trans inclusivity. You
Right.
rightly said we should not be talking about it. It has to be normalized.
I think
This shouldn't be a
mainstream.
question altogether. But
Yeah.
again, we cannot neglect the fact that we still have that kind of conditioned mind somewhere.
Right.
And you do feel and you do have experienced these kind of episodes in your life. So Amrita, now I think related to this only, what are the laws that can actually protect against these workplace bias, especially in country like ours, India?
We have a lot of laws and legislations that have been enacted for benefit of women in the workplace, but that's again very specific to women. Be it equal pay for equal work, be it maternity benefit. So the fact, as Natasha mentioned, there are a lot of provisions which are there for women specifically, but they don't really cater to the differences that have arisen, or I won't say differences, but the diversity that we have in the country now. A law has been enacted saying that, you're going to have that particular option of transgender being there in the forms, the government forms, which has been enacted now. But that again is a very small step towards it. As such, we don't have any law to address this particular issue. If somebody is facing any sort of discrimination, what does one do? The only, the only remedy or suits that people filed are basically writ jurisdiction before the High Court, saying there has been a breach of my fundamental rights. So this is the only thing that is there as of now, and there is a need for definitely, enactment of more laws, but also the enforcement is extremely, extremely important. Because if you don't have anything to enforce it, there's no point having a law in paper. You go to the court, cases go on for forever. That actually happens. It's only when something comes into the media, maybe, that it gets fast tracked. But there's not much that can be done as of now, except when it comes to women and their rights in the workplace.
Okay. So, Karthik, very important and I think significant question here. And we talk about this, the new budding leaders, the entrepreneurs. How can entrepreneurs address the unconscious bias, which we have been talking about since the start of this webinar, that unconscious bias? And I think entrepreneurs, again, the startups, I think, where they're starting up a complete ecosystem, so how they can probably address this?
So I think two things, right? One, I read this and I absolutely loved it. It said women are expected to raise kids like they don't have a career and work like they don't have kids. Right? So
I am going to, this is amazing. Like this just, right? Puts everything into the chest. This is just amazing.
Yeah. So both places expectation is कि दूसरा exist नहीं करता. That's the level of bias you work with. And second, I think one thing that Natasha spoke about, I think what has happened is diversity is a vanity metric today. Diversity is 20% women need to be in the company. Issue is not diversity, issue is inclusion. Right? Diversity is inviting someone to a party, inclusion is inviting someone to the dance floor. और दोनों में बहुत फर्क है. Right? Giving a seat at the table and giving voice on the table. So you can have great metrics which shows itni percent women hai, itne percent transgender hai. But problem is people, even if they have it, it's because it makes you look good as a company, not because you're, and I'll tell you my personal experiences, right? Because honestly, I have been in some ways a contributor to this bias. And my stage is more about awareness now, right? I know I have a bias. So in my previous company, our products never did well in South. And we always used to think, yaar, kya problem hai? And we don't know. And we invited a candidate who was from South India. And we gave him the app and we said, can you check and see why our t-shirts don't do well in South? And he said, because your t-shirts don't have collars. And in South India, most of the people, men especially, like to wear collars. Now, I am a South Indian. I should have known this. I've grown up at home seeing my dad. I am the diversity. I'm not the one included. So I'm just saying, one, it's gender agnostic, but second, it's even in, especially in women's case, right? And hence transgender is also eventually the first stage will be, हाँ ये सही है. Second is, अब इसको work कैसे करना है, right? So that's one point. I think on your point on how entrepreneurs can change, I think one thing that has happened is a lot of young people have become entrepreneurs. And more new people are getting born into a better world. And that is the reality. My nephew or my niece play on iPad, and I got iPad when I was in college. So naturally, their idea of inclusion, diversity, the kind of kids they meet are far more evolved. And hence, I genuinely believe each decade is going to be better than the previous one. Right? I genuinely believe that I wouldn't care less whether I have a son or a daughter. But that taboo itself has taken how many years to break? Right. So I think one good thing entrepreneurs are doing is, because they are new age, because they are themselves born into a better world, they recognize it. So making them aware is not a challenge anymore. They are straight away into, how do I apply it at work? Right. I think that's one big change I feel entrepreneurs can bring, and they are. I know of the fact. And it's amazing. We expect women to be empathetic, but have issues when they have kids. Right? Kids bring in empathy, and we want that feature at workplace, but not some of these major life events which bring out that emotion. So I think, it's a bit of a dichotomy there.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think, the newer generation, or maybe like you said, they are more evolved with their thoughts. And I think they have seen a little better in a different world wherein these kind of petty issues will not be there. Starting from their school, I think that's education is one of the, I think, the pillar in terms of, getting over this kind of whole scenario. And Natasha,
And
I
it
would like
works
to.
reverse as well, Shweta.
Yes,
The only male teacher I had in my school was my PT teacher.
correct.
It
Correct,
worked
correct,
both ways.
correct.
That I've always so categorized gender into certain roles.
Yes, teacher is equal. A girl can be a teacher. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, but right now, I mean, with so many discourses happening over the gender equality as well, and we've been taught at the school level. That's the beauty of it. I think that's. I mean, my kid doesn't even think that way because they've been constantly feeding with this thought. So rightly said.
Look at
And
the school, what happens when they say pot lunch, everybody
yeah.
gets their own lunch, that diversity, but nobody shares with each other. That's inclusion. It starts
I
from
absolutely get your point, and I've always seen this, and I've always talked about that inclusion. Not only with this, but probably disabled kids. They're also the inclusivity. Disabled people at the workforces, again, that's an inclusivity. But we, again, for statistics, we do give 2%, 3%. But again, the inclusivity, again, a question mark at
I have to
various
tell you,
places.
Flipkart did the most amazing initiative with these physically partially abled people.
Yeah.
And their first realization was, what they don't want is to be treated special.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. You have to treat them normal the way we guys are. Absolutely. So education, we are coming to the point. And Natasha, I wanted to understand from you that how important do you think education, would help us remove this kind of, stigma around the workplace and transsexuality?
I think it's quite an interesting question because the base right now that I'm sitting in front of you all, I'm having a conversation, I have the right pronunciation or the wrong pronunciation itself could be because I was in St. Xavier's, Calcutta. Because my father and my mother sent me to school in Calcutta, I'm able to disseminate this information to all of you. So I think education is one of the base and passport to future. If we will not be learned how to be, society, when we talk about society, it's a very fragmented mindset of our ancestors, ourselves. It's us as humans who have made this societal behavior. So I think education system is a very important part over here. If I see that, if education reaches everyone, not only to a trans kid, it could be a girl child, it could be a boy, it could be an in and out everyone, then tomorrow we can have a much better future. I always wanted to look into a world where you deserve the work. You're not getting it because you want, because you're in a special quota or I'm like a trans woman. No, I get what I deserve. If I've learned that I'm able to perform that job and duty, may I get it? That's exactly what I look at. So, even in my other speeches, I've been saying that weapons will not change the world. It's education that is going to change the world. So if one pen can change the world, I'm sure tomorrow's future can be much better. I remember, last year I was with this small set of my best friends. I was going to Himachal Pradesh, and I had a different thought altogether towards this society and people altogether, because this entire 2 years of pandemic, I've been reading and learning a lot. about out of the world. I would say that is beyond us, because we are in the terms of evolution, we are not just it. There will be a lot more things coming up. So over here, I was telling my friend that, when she was a teacher in Calcutta as well, Loyola High School, I was telling her, why do we have so many temples? I am a Hindu myself. I don't believe in religion. I believe in humanity as one religion. I said the number of temples and mosques and gurdwaras we have in 12. I literally counted. I remember I was putting 1, 2, 3 in my phone, and I almost counted like 41 temples and all together on the way. I said, wish we had that many institutions to learn, those local people. Imagine the number of people we would have had who would actually be the future for tomorrow. So I think education is the baseline for everything. If education is assimilated to everyone and everybody is taught, I think we'll be more civilized as all together, and we'll have more Natashas and a lot of beautiful trans women who are studying like this, and we'll all be coexisting.
Absolutely. I so agree with you. I think even I believe that, and I second all your, thoughts on this. Education is something which will transform, and it has been something which will evolve the minds and the conditioning.
Right. And sorry to interrupt, education wouldn't mean just having a degree, it's learning.
Absolutely,
learning is more important.
Absolutely. So education is something which have to be a sort of enrichment in your, thoughts and all.
Right.
It's not just like getting some sort of degrees. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, Amrita, I think another very significant aspect of this whole conversation is what qualifies, like as a discrimination in a workplace. If you can just give us like 2, 3 quick, pointers on this.
Discrimination, we've already gone over. I think the maternal wall bias is such that we've discussed. I've also brought it up a couple of times today. That's definitely there, especially when it comes to, even if now we've gotten back to work, but if there's a woman who's also a mother and she needs to work from home, the first thought that comes into the mind of the supervisor is, yaar ye kaam waam nahi hoga, bacche hain, isliye she wants to work from home, theek hai aap kar lo. This is one instance, definitely. The second instance is, as I brought up earlier, mental health. Mental health is definitely, although we are talking about it, it's still considered to be a taboo at many places. It is considered to be a stigma. If somebody comes up and says, I'm not doing that great, I need some time off, I need some time to myself, that is not looked at very kindly. One example, although it's not really relevant to your question, but something that was done by our firm was, as soon as the pandemic started, the founding partner of a firm, he sent out an email to the entire firm because he recognized the fact that there were a lot of young professionals who were working away from home, who moved out from smaller towns, come to the cities, and they're now isolated. They're not going back home. They're not really working from the comfort of home, like many of us had the option to. So he sent out an email to the entire firm letting them know that he's there to speak to them at any point in the day, any issue they have. And it's not just an email that he sent across. He's been very, very involved with all of us. We are a firm of about 500 people, and he's been there for almost all of us. We had anxieties about our parents who are living in different cities. He's gone out of his way to make sure that those anxieties are put to rest. And he's also made things available for parents of professionals who are working with him. So he's gone out of his way to do that. We also had a counselor in the firm that we could speak to with regard to our mental health issues. So the fact is, this is something that a lot of organizations don't pay a lot of attention to and see it as a weakness of sorts, or saying ki ek walk ke liye chale jao ya theek ho jayega, just take 2 days off, theek ho jayega. But this is something that needs to be discussed and talked about. And I think enough support needs to be given to people who need help with that. So this is the second thing where I see. And the third thing that I see is affinity bias, where, as Karthik mentioned, you have there is an inherent thing you would want to associate with people who are very for the same likes and dislikes as you. So the fact is, if you don't have a lot of women in the firm, there will be an unconscious bias, but that coupled with an affinity bias is not going to help. It's going to isolate women further. So you need to have enough women in the workforce also at higher levels, so that there are a lot of people who are at the table to take decisions for everybody in the firm. I think these are things that I could think of right now.
Yeah, I think that's you've put in across all the important pointers there. So, Karthik, I think we will be, this is the last question, and I think we want you to give us like a strong positive message, like being a chief people officer there. And I think you have understood, and, we had a so much insightful, things from you. So, any strong positive message to fight against those workplace bias? What are your last thoughts?
Yeah, so I think this is not a place where we need to fight. I think it's a place, I think Natasha said it so beautifully. I think education is the place. It's
True.
not that most people don't want to do it. It's just that they're not even aware of how they're conducting, right? I think, and I feel one more thing is, that's why I said systems change is important. And that's where entrepreneurs, CEOs are important, because culture definitely gets driven from the top, right? Now imagine someone living in some part of India, very used to spitting on the street, suddenly transports to Dubai and stops spitting overnight. The system is making you behave in a certain way, right?
This
Uh,
is so apt, Karthik. I was surprised to see this with the drivers also, like the way they drive in India and the way they drive in Dubai. I was so surprised.
so this is across. So what happens is human beings psychologically are designed to fit in. The moment their ecosystem makes them an outcast, the moment you're regressive, that's the first step to everybody wanting to fit in. How, say, sustainable has come into the picture, right? We need to be sustainable as a planet. Now everybody wants to fit in. So the moment this, how can we make it cool to be progressive? How, rather than revolutionary, let's make it cool, let's make it normal, let's make it more, let's make celebrities out of people who did some decision making which was far more progressive. I think those are the positive reinforcements that will lead to a far bigger, faster change than giving them a stick or a law. Because when you're making it do by law, people find a way to circumvent it. But when they want to do it because they believe in it, I'm saying it's self-regulation, right? So I think education and having leaders who drive it is the way.
That's absolutely right, Karthik, and I so second that. I'm just going to take a quick question from the audience here. I think we have received. Amrita, you can please take this question, ma'am. How to balance the environment between kids and office work? I mean, my hubby is work. My hubby is working from home, and my son is 3 years old. How do I manage?
See, one of the things that I did, as I already mentioned, there's an expectation that the child needs you at times, and you're on a work call, but it is expected that you'll step out and just make sure that everything is right. So what I started doing was, I had there are two things that could be done. Either I start working earlier in the day. I finish off my work, spend about 2-3 hours with my child. I was helping her with her online school as well. So at times I was doing that, and then getting back to work after finishing my lunch, and maybe working later in the night when she's asleep. The second thing that also worked with me at times was taking a break every 45 minutes, because even when you're in office, you don't sit at your desk and work for 2 hours at a stretch. You definitely take a break, 15-minute break, you take a walk, or you speak to somebody in the office. So I did try doing that at work as well, when I was working from home. So you finish off something for an hour, you spend about 15 minutes with your child, you play a puzzle with your child. I think the fact that the child sees you around and knows that the mother's right next door, and she's going to come to me, she's going to spend time with me, that really helped. That really helped me. So this is up to you to decide whether you want to, spend like a major chunk of the day at work and then spend about 2-3 hours with your child, or either you keep taking breaks every 1.5 hours and spend about 15 minutes with your kid. So that is something that I tried out, worked for me. And maybe if you would want to try that.
Yeah, and I think over the time we need to give that kind of independence to the kid as well, and give more quality time instead of
Right.
just quantity and sitting there but not even looking what the
Correct.
probably the child is talking about. So I think that's balance is very much needed. So another question is directed to you, Karthik. I always think, is it possible to have kids areas at workplaces?
Yes, I think if offices can be built at home now with work from home, why can't the reverse happen, right? I think also look at the question, right? How do I balance work and kid? Right, is a challenge today, which means clearly both at home and at work, someone is not understanding either side. And that's where the line, kids, women are expected to work like they don't have kids and have kids like they don't have work. I think so simple answer, yes, it can be. See, usually these are capex investments. With pandemic, lot of more people are not wanting to invest even in office because they don't know which variant might come today. So is philosophically it should be there? Absolutely, it should be there. But I think pragmatically, is this a solution? I don't see, at least till we are away from the fear of a pandemic and a new variant.
Yes. Another question to you, Amrita. I think I've taken that question, ma'am. How do I balance the work? Let me just quickly, I think we just got like a sort of an appreciation about the BabyChakra products, that they are amazing, and these products are dermatologically tested, becomes the first choice for every mother. Thank you so much. And I think we don't have any further questions. And in case if there is any, you can just drop in there when the webinar will be there on the our platform, social platforms. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Karthik. Thank you, Amrita. Thank you, Natasha. It was just amazing, to start the International Women's Day on this note and having a conversation at such a casual and at a free flow level. And very insightful, very informative, I think. Sorry? Okay. Okay, I think someone is, yeah. So, any last thoughts of you guys? And thank you so much for joining in. And any last thoughts, Amrita?
Thank you so much for having me. My only request to everybody is please speak up.
That's amazing. That's like the Karthik. What's your? It's a Women's Day, and you being the only guy here, and I think you know it all. I mean, you know the better psychology, the psyche of women around, because you've been working in that space for long. So, what's your message to all the women out there?
I think the goal should be that we don't need this day. I guess
amazing.
That would be a good
amazing.
way.
Yeah. But we're compensating with it, having a Men's Day as well. So
no, actually, that's also not good, right? The fact that you need days to celebrate.
Yeah.
Problem. I think the way it should be the new normal, where we don't need these days.
So I always say that, you should celebrate womanhood every day. Like, you should not pamper yourself on Women's Day and not the surrounding also, like the people and your fathers and, your husband should go Women's Day. It should be a normal day, and every day should be a Women's Day. I think, and Natasha, what's your message to all the women out there? All the, what's your last thought on it?
Well, to all the beautiful women out there, I would say an advance happy Women's Day, and let's match shoulder to shoulder and create a better future tomorrow for all of us. As Amrita said, I think I will second that. That is, don't forget to speak up. What is in your mind and heart?
Very beautifully said. So thank you, everyone. And we're wrapping up the session here. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you so much again for your valuable time. And it was great having you all here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, for being a great host. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Karthik. Thank you,
Bye,
Amrita.
Bye.